The triplets don't share your DNA, Mark. My heart stopped at those 7 words. The moment is burned into my memory forever. Tuesday morning, school drop-off. My triplets running ahead while their teacher approached with something hidden in her palm. I've been teaching for 22 years, Mark. I've never had to do this before, she whispered, pressing a folded note into my hand. I froze, staring at my wife of 12 years through the windshield as she waved goodbye, completely unaware. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from her. Don't forget, your best friend is coming for dinner tonight. The same best friend who looks exactly like my children. Hello, beautiful people. I hope you're enjoying your day wherever you're watching from. Are you sitting somewhere comfortable? You might need to be for this one. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. You won't want to miss what happens next in this unbelievable true story. Hit that subscribe button because trust me, you'll want to be here for all of our real-life dramas that unfold. Now tell me in the comments, what would you do if you discovered your children might not be yours? Because Mark's decision will leave you speechless. Jack Dawson had always been the kind of father who carried 3 different colored backpacks to school without complaint. At 38, his salt and pepper hair made him look distinguished rather than old, and the laugh lines around his eyes told stories of a man who found joy in the small things. His colleagues at the architectural firm where he worked as a senior partner often joked that he was the only man they knew who kept not 1, but 3 separate calendars of his daughter's activities. They're individuals, he would say with that trademark grin. Emma's ballet doesn't matter less than Sophie's soccer or Olivia's chess club. The triplets weren't identical, but they shared the same infectious laugh, high-pitched and uninhibited. A laugh that had always reminded Jack of his wife Rose's. At least, that's what he'd believed until 20 minutes ago. Now, sitting in his parked car 3 blocks from the elementary school, the note trembling in his hands, Jack couldn't breathe. 12 years of marriage. 6 years of fatherhood. Everything he thought he knew about his life suddenly felt like a cruel joke. Rose Woodward Dawson had been his college sweetheart. They'd met during his sophomore year when she literally crashed into him at the library, sending architectural drafts flying everywhere. She'd helped him gather every page, apologizing profusely, her auburn hair falling around her face like a curtain. By the time they'd collected the last drawing, he was already falling for her. After college, they'd married in a small ceremony by the lake where they'd spent countless evenings planning their future. Rose became a successful pediatrician while Jack built his reputation in sustainable architectural design. When they decided to start a family, the road had been rough, 3 years of fertility treatments, 2 miscarriages, and countless tears. Then came the miracle, triplets. The pregnancy had been high risk, but Rose had carried them to 34 weeks. Jack remembered cutting 3 umbilical cords with shaking hands, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they'd created together. Or what he thought they'd created together. Jack pulled out his phone and stared at the lock screen, a photo of the 3 girls at their 6th birthday party 3 months ago, chocolate cake smeared across their beaming faces. Emma, the bold one, always leading her sisters into new adventures. Sophie, the peacemaker, diplomatic even at 6. And Olivia, the observer, taking in everything with thoughtful eyes that seemed too wise for her years. Eyes that, now that he was forcing himself to really look, were exactly the same shape and unusual grey-green color as Cal Lector's. Cal. His best friend since freshman year of college. The best man at his wedding. The girl's godfather who never missed a birthday or school performance. The successful surgeon who'd been there for them through the fertility struggles, offering support and... Jack's blood ran cold. Cal had been the one to recommend the fertility specialist they'd used. He'd driven Rose to appointments when Jack was stuck in meetings. He'd been there for the birth when Jack got caught in a traffic jam. Cal, who'd never married despite his success, charm, and good looks. Cal, who came over for dinner at least once a week. Cal, who the girls called Uncle Cal with such adoration. Jack's phone buzzed with another text from Rose. Cal's bringing that wine we love. Should we tell him about the summer cabin plans tonight? Love you. Jack stared at the message as a memory surfaced, Cal helping Emma with her homework last month, their heads bent together over the kitchen table, the same exact cowlick at the crown of their heads. He joked about it at the time, she's got your study face, Cal. Everyone had laughed. No one had denied it. Jack put the key in the ignition but couldn't turn it. What was he supposed to do now? Go to work as if his entire life hadn't just imploded? Confront Rose immediately? Wait for Cal to show up for dinner and throw the note in his face? And what about the girls? His girls. Because regardless of DNA, Emma, Sophie, and Olivia were his daughters in every way that mattered. He'd been there for every nightmare, every fever, every triumph. He'd built them a treehouse with 3 different entrances designed to match their personalities. He was their father. Wasn't he? The school counselor had once told him during a parenting workshop, children are not raised by biology. They're raised by love. Jack took a deep breath and finally turned the key. He needed answers, but he also needed time to think. Whatever happened next would affect 3 innocent little girls who deserved better than having their world torn apart by adult betrayal. He pulled away from the curb, Helen Malone's note burning a hole in his pocket, and made a decision. He would get through the workday somehow, go home, and face whatever truth awaited him. Because if there was one thing Jack Dawson knew with absolute certainty, it was that he loved his daughters, DNA be damned. I know you're all probably feeling for Jack right now. Would you be able to make it through a workday with that knowledge weighing on you? Drop a comment below with what you think Jack should do next. And if you're enjoying this emotional journey, please hit that subscribe button to join our storytelling family. Every subscription helps us bring more of these powerful true stories to light. The architecture firm's glass and steel building loomed before Jack as he pulled into his reserved parking space. Dawson and Partners was etched across the entrance, a testament to his professional success. Today, it felt like a mockery. Jack sat in his car, staring at the note in his trembling hands. He'd read it a dozen times already, but each reading felt like the first punch to his gut. Mr. Dawson. I'm sorry to be the bearer of this news, but as a mandatory reporter, I have ethical obligations. During our recent genetic heritage project, anomalies appeared in your daughter's results that ethically I cannot ignore. The genetic markers indicate with near certainty that the triplets don't share your DNA, Mark. As their teacher, my primary concern is their welfare. I'm available to talk when you're ready. Helen Malone. Attached was a photocopy of the classroom project results, 3 family trees with genetic trait analyses that should have shown Jack's characteristics passed down to his daughters. Instead, there were highlighted inconsistencies, blood types that couldn't possibly come from Jack's genetics, distinctive hereditary features that matched Cal's family history, not his. Jack had studied enough science to understand the basics. The pattern was unmistakable. The evidence, damning. He finally dragged himself into the building, nodding mechanically at the receptionist's cheerful greeting. His assistant, Pamela, took one look at his face and cancelled his morning meetings without being asked. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, concern etching her features. Should I call Rose? No. The word came out sharper than he intended. No, he repeated more softly. Just need some time to think about a project. In his office, Jack closed the door and collapsed into his chair. He should be designing the new community center, but instead, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his photos. 6 years of memories with his daughters, their first steps, first words, first day of kindergarten. He'd been there for all of it. He was their father in every way that mattered. Except one. Jack's finger hovered over Rose's contact. One call could start the confrontation that would forever change their lives. But the words wouldn't come. Not yet. Instead, he found himself dialing Helen Malone's number from the note. Mr. Dawson, she answered on the second ring, her voice quiet and professional. I was hoping you'd call. Why did you do this? Jack's voice cracked. Why now? Why me? There was a pause on the other end. I've been teaching for over 2 decades. The Genetic Heritage Project is something I've done with my students for years. Usually, it's a wonderful way for children to connect with their ancestry. She sighed deeply. Sometimes, it reveals unexpected things. And you felt it was your place to tell me. Mr. Dawson, I didn't make this decision lightly. When the triplets brought in their completed home worksheets, the inconsistencies were significant. As a mandatory reporter, I have obligations to the children in my care. What does that even mean in this situation? It means that concealing information that could significantly impact a child's welfare isn't something I can legally or ethically do. The girls have been asking questions, Mr. Dawson. Olivia specifically noticed traits she shares with her uncle that she doesn't share with you. Jack's heart sank. She said something to you. She asked me if it was possible to look more like your godfather than your dad. She's 6, Mr. Dawson, but she's observant. Children often sense things adults think they're hiding. Jack squeezed his eyes shut, trying to process this new information. Have you spoken to my wife about this? No. My professional obligation was to inform a parent. I chose you because... She hesitated. Because you thought I was the one being deceived, Jack finished for her. I made the choice I thought would protect the children best, she replied carefully. What happens next is entirely up to you. But the girls deserve stability and truth, in whatever form that takes. After hanging up, Jack sat motionless, staring at the architectural model on his desk, a family home he designed last year, with 3 little bedrooms clustered around a central playroom. He'd poured his heart into that design, thinking of his daughters. His phone buzzed with a calendar notification, Cal's birthday dinner, 7 p.m. Jack had completely forgotten. Tonight wasn't just any dinner. It was Cal's 40th birthday celebration. Rose had been planning it for weeks. The girls had made homemade cards. Jack had purchased an expensive bottle of scotch for the man who might have fathered his children. The final piece clicked into place. Rose's insistence on hosting tonight despite her busy hospital schedule. Her secretive phone calls. Her unusual nervousness this morning. Jack's numbness gave way to a cold, clarifying rage. This wasn't just about the past. Something was happening now. He stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked out of his office. Cancel everything, he told Pamela. Family emergency. The drive home took 20 minutes. Jack's mind raced through possibilities, rehearsing and discarding confrontations. By the time he pulled into the driveway of their Tudor-style home, he had settled on a plan. Not a confrontation, not yet. First, he needed more information. The house was empty. Rose would be at the hospital until 6. The girls were at school until 3. Jack had 4 hours. He went straight to Rose's home office. Her computer was password protected, but Jack knew all her passwords, or thought he did. Her usual combination didn't work. Neither did her backup. After the 3rd failed attempt, Jack sat back, another piece of evidence clicking into place. Rose had changed her passwords recently. Why? Moving methodically, Jack searched through her desk drawers. Nothing unusual in the first 2. The 3rd was locked, strange for a drawer that had never been locked before. In the kitchen, Jack found Rose's spare key ring and returned to the office. The small key fit perfectly. Inside the drawer was a stack of medical documents. Jack's hands trembled as he spread them on the desk. Fertility clinic documents from 6 years ago, forms he'd never seen before. Consent forms with signatures that made his vision blur. Artificial insemination forms listing Cal Lecter as the sperm donor and Jack Dawson as the intended father. And dated just 1 week ago, a paternity test confirmation showing a 99.9% match between Cal Lecter and the triplets. The room spun around Jack. She knew. Rose had always known. And now, for some reason, she had confirmed it again. But why? After 6 years, why get another paternity test unless... Jack's phone rang, startling him. The screen showed Rose's smiling face. He almost declined the call but then answered, fighting to keep his voice steady. Hey, what's up? Jack! Thank goodness. I was worried when Pamela said you left work with a family emergency. Is everything okay? Are the girls all right? The concern in her voice sounded so genuine that for a second, Jack doubted everything. Could there be an explanation? The girls are fine, he managed. I just wasn't feeling well. Oh no. Do you think you'll be okay for tonight? Cal's really looking forward to it, and the girls have been practicing their birthday song all week. Jack closed his eyes, gripping the paternity test in his hand. I wouldn't miss it, he said. Actually, I was thinking of picking up the girls early from school. Spend some extra time with them before the party. There was a pause on the other end. That's unusual for a Thursday. Don't you have that community center deadline? Some things are more important than work, Rose. Another pause. Of course. The girls would love that. Jack, is everything really okay? You sound different. Just thinking about what matters most, he replied, surprised by the truth in his words. I'll see you tonight. After hanging up, Jack carefully replaced everything in the drawer except the paternity test, which he folded and put in his pocket alongside Helen Malone's note. 2 pieces of paper. 2 devastating truths. 1 impossible choice to make. Jack grabbed his car keys. It was time to pick up his daughters from school. I can see you're totally invested in Jack's journey now, aren't you? What would you do in his position? Would you confront Rose immediately or wait like Jack is doing? Comment below with your thoughts, I read every single one. And if you're new here, subscribe to join our amazing community of story lovers. The real drama is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what Jack discovers next. The elementary school playground buzzed with activity as Jack signed the triplets out early. Ms. Malone gave him a subtle nod from across the room, acknowledgement of the bomb she had detonated in his life that morning. Daddy! Emma sprinted across the classroom, her sisters following close behind. Why are you here so early? Is it a surprise? Jack crouched down, opening his arms to gather all 3 girls in a tight embrace. He breathed in the familiar scent of their strawberry shampoo and craft glue, fighting the unexpected sting of tears. I thought we could have a special afternoon before Uncle Cal's birthday dinner, he managed, his voice mostly steady. Sophie, always the intuitive one, studied his face. Are you sad, Daddy? No, sweetheart, Jack lied, brushing her cheek with his thumb. Just really happy to see my favorite girls. Olivia, quiet as always, slipped her small hand into his. Can we go to the Science Museum? Uncle Cal said there's a new DNA exhibit that explains why I have his eyes. Jack's heart stuttered. He glanced up to find Helen Malone watching, her expression sympathetic but firm. How about the park instead, he suggested, forcing brightness into his tone. We can get ice cream and feed the ducks. The girls cheered, crisis temporarily averted. As they walked toward the car, Jack felt Helen touch his arm lightly. Mr. Dawson, she said softly. Whatever you decide, they need stability. He nodded stiffly and continued walking, 3 little hands clasped in his. At Lakeside Park, Jack sat on a bench watching the girls chase each other around the playground. Their laughter carried across the water, piercing his heart. How many afternoons had he spent just like this, reveling in the miracle of their existence? How many times had he thanked whatever cosmic fortune had blessed him with these 3 perfect beings? Now every memory was tainted, every milestone a lie. Daddy, watch this! Emma called, hanging upside down from the monkey bars, her auburn hair, so like roses, cascading toward the ground. Jack applauded her daring, even as his mind catalogued her features with new awareness. The shape of her jaw. The set of her ears. The cowlick in her hair, all cows. His phone buzzed. A text from Rose, did you pick up the girls? School called to confirm the early release. At the park, he typed back. Wanted quality time before tonight's celebration. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, that's wonderful. You're the best dad. Love you. The best dad. The words felt like acid now. Uncle Cal texted Mom that he has a big announcement tonight, Sophie said, suddenly appearing at his side, slightly breathless from running. Do you know what it is? Jack's stomach clenched. No idea, sweetheart. I think he's getting married, Emma declared, joining them with Olivia trailing behind. He's been acting weird lately. Olivia shook her head. Not married. He told me it's something even better. Something even better. The words echoed in Jack's mind as he bought the girls ice cream from a nearby vendor. What could Cal possibly be announcing tonight? And why had Rose recently run a new paternity test? As the afternoon wore on, Jack found himself studying his daughters with painful intensity. The way Emma led her sisters in every game, her natural leadership so like Cal's confident surgical demeanor. Sophie's diplomatic nature, always finding compromise, hadn't Cal been the peacemaker in college too? And Olivia, with her quiet intelligence and observant nature, so reminiscent of Cal's thoughtful side. Had Jack seen the resemblances all along and simply chosen not to acknowledge them? Or had he truly been blind to the truth? Daddy, you're not watching. Emma complained as she demonstrated a cartwheel. Sorry, sweetheart. That was amazing, Jack said, forcing himself back to the present. You're getting so good at those. Uncle Cal taught me. He says I'm naturally athletic like him. Jack's smile froze. Of course he had. As the afternoon sun began its descent, Jack reluctantly gathered the girls for the drive home. Rose would be back soon to prepare for the dinner, and Jack needed time to compose himself before facing her and Cal. Can we do this again tomorrow? Sophie asked as they walked to the car. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon, Jack promised, his heart breaking at the uncertainty of that promise. What would tomorrow look like for any of them after tonight? When they pulled into the driveway, Rose's car was already there. Jack took a deep breath, preparing for the performance of his life. Remember, it's a surprise party for Uncle Cal, he reminded the girls as they tumbled out of the car. So we need to act normal until it's time for the surprise. The irony of his words wasn't lost on him. Rose greeted them at the door, her face lighting up at the sight of the girls. She was beautiful, she had always been beautiful, with her auburn hair pulled into a casual knot and her green eyes bright with excitement. The same green eyes that Olivia had inherited. The same green eyes that, Jack now realized, weren't green at all but the distinctive grey-green shade that ran in Cal's family. How was the park? Rose asked, bending to kiss each girl before rising to press her lips to Jack's cheek. It took everything in him not to flinch away. Fun. Emma answered for all of them. Daddy got us double scoops. Rose raised an eyebrow at Jack. Special occasion. Just felt like it, he replied, meeting her gaze steadily. The girls deserved a treat. Something flickered in Rose's eyes, concern, perhaps, or suspicion, but she smiled and turned to the girls. Why don't you three go wash up and change into your party dresses? Uncle Cal will be here in an hour. As the girls raced upstairs, Rose turned back to Jack. You really left work early to take them to the park? That's not like you during a big project week. Jack shrugged, removing his jacket carefully to avoid dislodging the damning papers in its pocket. Had some clarity about priorities today. Rose studied him for a moment. Jack, is everything okay? You seem, I don't know, different. He forced a smile. Just excited for tonight. Cal's big announcement and all. Rose's hand froze where it had been smoothing her blouse. He told you about the announcement. The girls mentioned it, Jack said carefully, watching her reaction. They seem to think it's something significant. Rose relaxed slightly. Well, it is. But I should let him tell everyone himself. She reached for Jack's hand. It'll be a special night. I've got champagne chilling, the girls are excited, and she squeezed his fingers. I'm just really grateful for our family, Jack. The sincerity in her voice was like a knife to his heart. How could she stand there, looking him in the eyes, speaking of family while holding such a devastating secret? I'm going to shower before Cal arrives, Jack said, gently extracting his hand from hers. Good idea. I laid out your blue shirt, Cal's favorite. Of course she had. Upstairs, Jack could hear the girls chattering excitedly in their room as they prepared for the party. He stepped into the master bathroom and locked the door before pulling out both papers from his pocket and reading them side by side again. The fertility clinic form was dated 6 years and 9 months ago, right when they'd been going through treatments. Cal's signature was bold and clear on the donor line. Jack's signature appeared under intended father, but looking at it now, with the clarity of betrayal sharpening his vision, Jack could see it wasn't his handwriting at all. It was a reasonable facsimile, but the loop of the J was wrong, and the cross of the T/too far to the right. Rose had forged his signature. She and Cal had planned this from the beginning. But why? Why not just use Jack's sperm if the girls were meant to be his? A memory surfaced, the fertility doctor explaining that Jack's sperm motility was low, reducing their chances of conception, especially with Rose's complicated uterine condition. They discussed options, including sperm donation, but Jack had been resistant, wanting to keep trying naturally. Had Rose taken matters into her own hands? Had she and Cal decided that Jack's desire for biological children was less important than Rose's desire to become a mother? Or was there more to it? The recent paternity test troubled him most. Why confirm what she already knew unless something had changed? The sound of the doorbell jolted Jack from his thoughts. Cal had arrived early. Jack's hand shook as he carefully refolded the papers and placed them in his wallet. He splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection in the mirror. For the girls, he whispered to himself. Whatever happens next, remember it's for the girls. Downstairs, Cal's booming laugh echoed through the house. Jack could hear the triplets' excited voices as they greeted their beloved uncle. Jack straightened his shoulders and opened the bathroom door. It was time for the performance of his life. Cal Lector stood in the living room, a triplet attached to each arm and one perched on his shoulders. At 40, he was in his prime, successful, handsome, with the same grey-green eyes that Olivia had inherited and the same cowlick that all three girls shared. "Jack!" Cal exclaimed, his face breaking into a genuine smile. "The man of the hour. Rose says you played hooky today to take the girls to the park. Good for you." Jack crossed the room and extended his hand, summoning every ounce of acting ability he possessed. "Happy birthday, old friend." Cal ignored the outstretched hand and pulled Jack into a one-armed hug, the girls giggling as they were jostled in the process. "Since when do we shake hands? 20 years of friendship and suddenly you formal. 20 years. 2 decades of friendship, culminating in this moment of ultimate betrayal." Over Cal's shoulder, Jack caught Rose watching them, her expression a mixture of happiness and something else, anxiety. Was she worried Jack might have discovered their secret? "All right, birthday boy," Rose said, clapping her hands. "Girls, help me bring in the appetizers while Daddy gets Uncle Cal a drink." As the girls followed Rose into the kitchen, Cal clapped Jack on the shoulder. "Scotch? I heard a rumor you might have gotten me something special." The bottle of 30-year-old Macallan that Jack had purchased weeks ago for his best friend now seemed like another cruel joke. Still, he retrieved it from his study and poured 2 glasses. "To 40, Jack said, raising his glass. "And to friendship." Cal's eyes crinkled as he smiled. "To friendship, the most important relationship in my life." He took a sip and groaned appreciatively. "Damn, Jack, you know me too well. This is perfect." Jack fought to keep his expression neutral. "So Rose mentioned you have some big announcement tonight." Cal's smile widened. "She told you?" "I was hoping to surprise everyone. Just that there is an announcement, not what it is." Cal leaned in conspiratorially. "It's life-changing, Jack. Something I've wanted for a long time. But I should wait until after dinner to share with everyone." Jack nodded, taking a larger swallow of scotch than he intended. "The girls are excited. They've been speculating all afternoon." "Those 3, Cal chuckled, his expression softening with unmistakable affection. "They're amazing kids, Jack. You and Rose did something incredible there." The irony was almost unbearable. Dinner was an exquisite form of torture. Rose had prepared Cal's favorites: grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, crusty bread. The girls chattered animatedly, competing for Cal's attention. Rose kept glancing between Jack and Cal with an expression of nervous anticipation. Cal seemed oblivious to the tension, regaling everyone with stories from his recent medical conference. Jack observed it all as if from a great distance, noting with detached interest how the 5 of them looked like a perfect family tableau. Cal at the head of the table, Rose beside him, the 3 girls clustered around, all with the same hair cowlick, the same mannerisms, the same grey-green eyes. Jack was the outsider. Perhaps he always had been. After the birthday cake, chocolate ganache, Cal's favorite, and the girls' enthusiastic if slightly off-key rendition of Happy Birthday, Cal stood and tapped his glass. "I have an announcement to make," he said, his expression suddenly serious. "Something important that affects all of us." The girls leaned forward eagerly. Rose reached under the table and squeezed Jack's hand so hard her nails dug into his palm. "As you know," Cal continued, "I've been offered the position of Chief of Surgery at Boston General several times over the years. I've always turned it down because my life is here, with the people who matter most." He glanced around the table, his gaze lingering on the girls. "But last week, they made an offer I can't refuse." Rose's grip on Jack's hand tightened painfully. "They're establishing a new pediatric surgery center," Cal continued, "with unprecedented research opportunities and resources. And they want me to lead it." Emma's face fell. "You're moving to Boston?" Cal smiled gently. "That's the thing, Em. I don't want to leave you 3 or your parents. You're my family." Jack felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Family." "So," Cal continued, "I proposed a different solution. The hospital has agreed to create a satellite research facility right here in Chicago. I'll split my time between both cities. Relief washed over the girls' faces. But Rose was still tense beside Jack, her fingers now entwined with his in a grip that felt desperate. There's more, Cal said, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out an envelope. To seal the deal, Boston General is offering something spectacular. A fully funded research position for a brilliant pediatrician to join my team. He slid the envelope across the table to Rose. Your mother? The girls gasped with delight. Rose's hand trembled as she reached for the envelope. You and Rose would be working together? Jack found himself asking, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Cal beamed. A dream team. Rose's pediatric expertise combined with my surgical skills, we could revolutionize treatments for children. He raised his glass again. To new beginnings, and keeping family close. Family close. The words echoed in Jack's mind as they all clinked glasses. Rose's eyes shimmered with tears of what appeared to be joy as she examined the offer letter. This is incredible, Cal, she whispered. But Jack and I would need to discuss. Of course, Cal said, waving his hand dismissively. It's a big decision. But the research opportunities for you would be extraordinary, Rose. And, he added, looking directly at Jack, the facility would need innovative architectural design. There could be something in this for you too, old friend. It was all so perfectly arranged. The three of them, working together. The girls, growing up with both their mother and their biological father nearby. One big, happy family. With Jack still in the dark, still playing his assigned role. When would this start? Jack asked, fighting to keep his voice level. The satellite facility would take about a year to build, Cal replied. But Rose could begin part-time research immediately. We could coordinate schedules so someone is always here for the girls. The thoughtfulness of the arrangement, Cal making sure the children he had fathered would always be cared for, was almost as painful as the deception itself. It sounds like you've thought of everything, Jack said quietly. Cal nodded, his expression earnest. I've been working on this for months. It's my chance to give back to all of you for the happiness you've brought me. His gaze swept over the girls with unmistakable pride. Especially these three miracles. Jack felt the papers in his wallet like a physical burn against his chest. Months of planning. The recent paternity test. It all made terrible sense now. This wasn't just about a job opportunity. This was Cal creating a way to be permanently, legitimately involved in his biological daughter's lives. Did Rose know that Cal knew? Had they planned this together all along? Or was Cal making his move now, leveraging his knowledge to force a new arrangement? The girls were bubbling with questions about Boston, whether they would get to visit, if Cal would still come for weekly dinners. Nothing would keep me from my three favorite girls, Cal assured them, tousling Emma's hair affectionately. Jack stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I think this calls for more celebration. Rose, help me get the champagne from the kitchen. Rose followed him, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern. As soon as they were alone in the kitchen, she threw her arms around his neck. Can you believe it? She whispered. This is such an incredible opportunity. The research I could do with Cal's backing, we could help so many children. Jack carefully disentangled himself from her embrace. You seem to have known about this for a while. Rose's smile faltered slightly. Cal mentioned the possibility a few weeks ago, but I had no idea he'd arranged a position for me too. She reached for Jack's hand. I know it would mean changes for us, but think of the possibilities. The girls adore Cal, and this way, they'd still have him in their lives even with his new responsibilities. They'd still have him in their lives, Jack repeated slowly. That's important to you. Of course it is. He's their godfather, Jack. He's been there since the beginning. She tilted her head, studying him. What's wrong? I thought you'd be excited. Cal even mentioned architectural opportunities for you. Jack stared at his wife of 12 years, the mother of the children he had raised, the woman he had built a life with. In her eyes, he saw genuine confusion at his reaction. Whatever else she had done, in this moment, she believed she was sharing wonderful news. We should get back to our guests, Jack said finally, reaching for the champagne in the refrigerator. We can talk about this later. Rose caught his arm. Jack, please tell me what's wrong. You've been off all evening. He looked down at her hand on his arm, remembering all the times that touch had brought him comfort. Now it felt like another lie. Later, he repeated firmly. Tonight is about Cal. Isn't it just wild how quickly life can turn upside down? I bet you're feeling all kinds of emotions watching Jack try to hold it together through that dinner. If you're enjoying this emotional rollercoaster, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our powerful stories. And drop a comment telling me what you think Jack should do next, confront them both right there at the table, or keep playing along to learn more. I read every comment, and your thoughts might influence our future stories. Part 5, The Midpoint Revelation. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and mechanical conversation. Jack went through the motions, pouring champagne, toasting Cal's success, discussing the possibilities of the new research center. All while the truth burned in his pocket and seared through his heart. By 9 o'clock, the girls were fading despite their excitement. Jack volunteered to put them to bed while Rose and Cal continued discussing the research opportunities downstairs. Will we move to Boston, Daddy? Sophie asked as Jack tucked her beneath her unicorn comforter. No, sweetheart. If anything happens with this project, it would be right here in Chicago. But we'll see Uncle Cal even more. Emma pressed, her eyes lighting up at the prospect. Jack swallowed hard. Maybe. It's all very new, Em. We'll figure it out. Olivia, already half asleep in her own bed, murmured, Uncle Cal said it would be like having two dads. Jack froze. What did you say, Liv? Olivia's eyes fluttered open. At school last week. He picked us up for ice cream, remember? He said with his new job, it would be like having two dads because he'd be around all the time. She yawned widely. I think that would be nice. Jack pressed a kiss to her forehead, his heart splintering. Sleep tight, sweetheart. After all three girls were asleep, Jack lingered in the doorway, watching their peaceful faces in the glow of the nightlight. These precious children had become the center of his universe. The thought of losing them, or of sharing them with the man who had betrayed him, was unbearable. Yet Cal was their biological father. Did that give him rights that transcended Jack's years of devoted parenting? Downstairs, Rose and Cal had moved to the living room sofa, their heads bent close together over a laptop, reviewing research protocols. They looked up as Jack entered, their identical expressions of enthusiasm faltering slightly at his somber face. Girls asleep? Rose asked. Jack nodded. They're excited about the prospect of seeing more of Uncle Cal. Cal smiled, clearly pleased. They're amazing kids, Jack. You and Rose have done an incredible job with them. The continued pretense was suddenly too much to bear. Jack walked to the bar cart and poured himself another scotch, his back to them as he gathered his courage. Olivia mentioned something interesting just now, he said, keeping his voice carefully neutral. She said you told them it would be like having two dads. There was a beat of silence behind him. Did I say that? Cal's voice held a note of forced casualness. I suppose I meant I'd be around more to help out. You know how much those girls mean to me. Jack turned slowly, the crystal tumbler cold against his palm. I think I'm starting to understand exactly how much. Rose set the laptop aside, her brow furrowing. Jack, what's going on? You've been acting strange all evening. Jack reached for his wallet and removed the two papers he'd been carrying all day. He placed them carefully on the coffee table without a word. Rose's sharp intake of breath was audible in the silent room. Cal went completely still, his easy smile vanishing. Where did you get those? Rose whispered, her face draining of color. Does it matter? Jack replied, his voice steadier than he felt. What matters is what they say. He looked directly at Cal, that you're the biological father of my children. Cal's eyes darted to Rose, then back to Jack. Jack, I can explain. Can you? Jack cut him off. Can you explain why my best friend and my wife conspired to use his sperm to conceive our children without my knowledge or consent? Can you explain why you forged my signature on donor forms? He turned to Rose. Or why you ran another paternity test just last week? Rose's hands trembled as she reached for the papers. This isn't how you were supposed to find out, she whispered. So I was supposed to find out. Jack felt a cold clarity descending over him. Was that part of tonight's announcement? Surprise, Jack! I'm not just your children's godfather, I'm their real father. And now we're all going to work together. No! Rose exclaimed, tears filling her eyes. It wasn't like that at all. Then what was it like, Rose? Jack demanded, his composure finally cracking. Please, enlighten me about how the two people I trusted most in the world have been lying to me for over 6 years. Cal stood up, his expression grave. Jack, you need to let us explain. This isn't what you think. What I think, Jack said, his voice dangerously low, is that my wife and best friend betrayed me in the most profound way possible. What I think is that you're now trying to maneuver your way into a more significant role in my daughter's lives under the guise of a career opportunity. That's not true, Cal insisted. The Boston offer is legitimate. The research position for Rose is real. I don't doubt it, Jack replied. What I doubt is your motivation. Tell me, Cal, when did you find out the girls were yours? Or did you know from the beginning? Cal glanced at Rose, who nodded almost imperceptibly. I always knew, Cal admitted quietly. It was my idea. Jack felt like he'd been physically struck. Your idea? Rose stood up, tears streaming down her face. Jack, please, you have to understand. We had been trying for so long. The doctor said your sperm motility was too low, that with my uterine issues, our chances were practically zero. So you went behind my back? Jack demanded. Instead of talking to me about donor options. We did talk about it. Rose cried. You shut down the conversation every time. You were fixated on having biological children or nothing at all. Jack shook his head in disbelief. So instead of continuing the discussion or accepting that maybe we weren't meant to have biological children, you two cooked up this scheme. It wasn't a scheme, Cal said firmly. It was a gift. A gift? Jack repeated incredulously. Cal nodded. You're my best friend, Jack. I saw how much you wanted children, how the fertility struggles were destroying both of you. When the doctors explained the medical reality, I offered Rose a solution that would give you what you wanted most, a family. Without telling me the truth. Because we knew how you would react, Rose said softly. You were so adamant about having your own biological children. We were afraid you'd reject the idea of using a donor, even if that donor was Cal. Jack stared at them both, these two people he had loved and trusted, now strangers to him. So you made the decision for me. You took away my choice. We gave you children, Cal countered. 3 beautiful girls who adore you. Who call you daddy and run to you when they're hurt or scared. Does it really matter where their DNA came from? It matters that you lied. Jack shouted, then immediately lowered his voice, conscious of the sleeping children upstairs. It matters that for 6 years, you've both been looking at me, watching me love these girls, knowing that I didn't know the truth. The girls are yours, Jack, Rose said desperately. In every way that matters. You're their father. Cal has never tried to claim otherwise. Until now, Jack said quietly. Why the new paternity test, Rose? Why confirm what you already knew? Rose and Cal exchanged another look, and Jack felt a fresh wave of betrayal at their silent communication. When the Boston position became serious, Rose explained hesitantly, Cal and I discussed whether it was time to tell you the truth. The girls are getting older. They're starting to notice similarities between themselves and Cal, Olivia especially. And with Cal potentially taking a more visible role in our lives through work. You thought it was time to spring this on me, Jack finished for her. How considerate. We wanted to do it right, Cal insisted. We were going to talk to you together, after we'd consulted with a family therapist about the best way to handle it with the girls. Jack laughed bitterly. How thoughtful. And this job offer? Was that part of the plan too? A way to ensure you had a legitimate reason to be more involved with your biological children. Cal had the grace to look uncomfortable. The job offer is genuine, but yes, I saw it as an opportunity to be more present in the girls' lives while still respecting your role as their father. How magnanimous of you, Jack said coldly. Respecting my role in this elaborate charade you created. It's not a charade, Rose protested. Your relationship with the girls is real. Their love for you is real. But our marriage? Jack challenged, fixing his gaze on Rose. Was that real? Or was I just a convenient father figure for the children you wanted to have with Cal? Rose recoiled as if slapped. How can you say that? I love you, Jack. I've always loved you. Yet you betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. Jack turned to Cal and you. My best friend. The man who stood beside me at my wedding. You've been watching me raise your biological children for 6 years without saying a word. Because they're your children, Jack, Cal insisted. Biologically, yes, they share my DNA. But you're their father in every way that matters. Stop saying that. Jack slammed his glass down on the table. Stop pretending this was some altruistic act of friendship. You took something from me, am I right to know the truth about my own family? A small voice from the staircase froze all three adults. Daddy? Why are you yelling? Sophie stood on the bottom step, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. Jack immediately moderated his tone. I'm sorry for waking you, sweetheart. Uncle Cal and Mommy and I were just having a grown-up discussion. Sophie looked unconvinced. You sounded really angry. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements, Rose said gently, wiping away her tears. But everything's okay. Let's get you back to bed. I'll take her, Jack said firmly, crossing to the staircase and lifting Sophie into his arms. She wrapped her small arms around his neck, burying her face against his shoulder. I don't like it when you fight, she whispered. I know, sweetie, Jack murmured, pressing a kiss to her hair. I'm sorry. As Jack carried Sophie upstairs, he heard Cal say quietly to Rose, maybe I should go. Rose's response was too soft to hear. After tucking Sophie back in and checking that Emma and Olivia were still asleep, Jack returned downstairs to find Rose alone in the living room, the papers back in her hands. Cal thought it would be better if he left, she said, her voice hoarse from crying. He said to tell you he's sorry and that he'll respect whatever you decide to do. Jack nodded stiffly. How generous of him. Jack, please, Rose set the papers aside and stood up. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But please try to understand why we did what we did. I'm trying, Jack said honestly. I'm trying to understand how the woman I love and the friend I trusted could lie to me every day for 6 years. How you could look me in the eye as I celebrated becoming a father, knowing it was all based on a lie. It wasn't a lie, Rose insisted. Not where it mattered. You are their father, Jack. You've loved them and raised them from the moment they were born. Would you have ever told me the truth if Cal hadn't gotten this job offer? Rose hesitated, then answered with painful honesty. I don't know. Maybe not. The girls were happy. You were happy. What purpose would it have served? Truth serves its own purpose, Rose. Honesty is the foundation of any relationship. And if the truth would have prevented those 3 beautiful girls upstairs from existing? Would honesty have been worth that price? Rose challenged. Jack had no immediate answer for that. Would he trade knowing the truth for a world without Emma, Sophie, and Olivia? The question was impossible. What happens now? Rose asked softly when Jack didn't respond. Jack sank onto the sofa, suddenly exhausted. I don't know, he admitted. I need time to think. Are you going to leave us? The vulnerability in Rose's voice was devastating. Jack looked up at the woman he had loved for 15 years. Despite everything, despite the magnitude of her betrayal, he couldn't imagine walking away from the life they had built together. More importantly, he couldn't imagine walking away from his daughters. Because regardless of biology, they were his daughters. On that point, at least, Rose and Cal were right. The girls are my priority, Jack said finally. Whatever happens between us, I won't abandon them. Relief washed over Rose's face. Thank you, she whispered. They need you, Jack. We all do. Need and trust are different things, Rose. Right now, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. Rose nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I understand. But I hope someday you can forgive me. We never meant to hurt you, Jack. Everything we did was out of love, Cal's love for you as his friend, my love for you as my husband, and our shared desire to give you the family you desperately wanted. Jack stood up, emotionally drained. I'm going to sleep in the guest room tonight. I need space to think. Of course, Rose agreed quickly. Take all the time you need. As Jack turned to leave the room, Rose called after him softly. Jack? For what it's worth, I've never regretted marrying you. And I've never for one moment regretted our family. Jack paused in the doorway but didn't turn around. The problem, Rose, is that it wasn't our family. It was yours and Cal's. I was just the one who didn't know it. In the guest bedroom, Jack sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. The events of the day played on repeat in his mind: Helen Malone's note, the fertility documents, Cal's announcement, the confrontation. His phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Cal. I know you probably don't want to hear from me right now, but I need you to know something. Those girls are yours, Jack. In every way that counts. Rose and I made a terrible mistake in not being honest with you, but we never meant to hurt you. If you need me to step back completely, I will. The job offer is yours to veto. I'll respect whatever boundaries you set. But please don't doubt for 1 second that Rose loves you or that those girls are your daughters. Jack stared at the message for a long time before setting the phone aside without responding. He walked to the window and looked out at the quiet suburban street. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car drove slowly past. The ordinary sounds of an ordinary night, while his entire world had been shattered and reassembled into something unrecognizable. Yet upstairs, 3 little girls slept peacefully, unaware that the foundations of their family had just been shaken to the core. Jack thought of Emma's fearless spirit, Sophie's gentle heart, and Olivia's quiet wisdom. He thought of first steps and first words, of nightmares soothed and scraped knees bandaged. He thought of the treehouse he had built with his own hands, customized for each girl's personality. Biology or not, those were his children. And whatever happened next, whatever he decided about Rose and Cal and their shared future, one thing was certain: Jack would do whatever it took to protect his daughters from the fallout of adult betrayals and secrets. Because that's what real fathers do. Wow, what an emotional confrontation, right? I can actually feel my heart racing just narrating this story to you. This is the moment where everything changes for Jack, Rose, and Cal, and those 3 innocent girls caught in the middle. What do you think Jack should do? Is there any coming back from a betrayal this deep? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're just joining us on this emotional journey, make sure to hit that subscribe button. The most powerful part of this true story is still to come, and you won't want to miss how Jack handles this impossible situation. Jack barely slept. By dawn, he had made a decision: he would talk to a lawyer. Not because he wanted to leave, the thought of being separated from the girls was unbearable, but because he needed to understand his legal standing. If Rose and Cal decided to leverage their biological connection to the triplets, where would that leave him? He slipped out of the house before anyone else was awake, leaving a note on the kitchen counter: gone to the office. Need time to think. We'll call later. Instead of heading to his firm, Jack drove to the office of Diane Chang, a family law attorney he had worked with on a community center project years earlier. Her assistant was surprised by his early arrival but managed to squeeze him in before Diane's first scheduled appointment. Jack Dawson, Diane greeted him warmly as he entered her office. It's been what, 3 years? How's that community center holding up? The building's fine, Jack replied, his voice hollow. It's my family that's falling apart. Diane's professional demeanor immediately shifted to concern. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Tell me what's going on. Jack explained the situation as clinically as he could, laying out the facts without emotion: the teacher's note, the fertility clinic documents, Cal's job offer, the confrontation. Diane listened without interruption, taking occasional notes. When he finished, she set her pen down and leaned forward. Jack, I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's an incredibly complex situation, both emotionally and legally. What are my rights? Jack asked bluntly. If Rose and Cal decided they wanted to form some sort of alternative family unit, where would that leave me? You've been the girl's father in every practical sense since birth, Diane said carefully. You're named on their birth certificates, correct? Jack nodded. And you functioned as their father, making decisions about their education, healthcare, daily needs, for their entire lives. Yes. I'm the one who takes them to most doctor appointments, who goes to parent-teacher conferences, who built their treehouse and coaches Sophie's soccer team. Diane made another note. In cases like this, courts generally consider the best interests of the children above all else. Disrupting their relationship with the only father they've ever known would likely be deemed harmful, even if their biological father wants to claim his rights. It complicates things, Diane admitted. But Cal has known about his biological connection from the beginning and has chosen not to assert parental rights. Instead, he's functioned as a family friend or uncle figure, correct? Yes. That works in your favor. However, I have to be honest, if this went to court, it would be messy. Cal could potentially seek to establish legal paternity now, especially with the genetic evidence. Jack's stomach clenched. And Rose? If we were to separate, would her biological connection to the girls give her an advantage? Diane's expression softened. Is that what you want, Jack? To end your marriage? I don't know what I want, Jack admitted. Except that I can't lose my daughters. Look, before you make any decisions about your marriage, I want you to consider something. The girls have a stable family unit with 2 loving parents. Disrupting that, regardless of the biological complications, could have significant impacts on them. So I should just forgive and forget? Pretend this never happened. That's not what I'm saying, Diane corrected gently. What I'm saying is that there are ways to address this situation that don't involve tearing your family apart. Perhaps family therapy, establishing clear boundaries with Cal, legal agreements that protect your role as the girl's father while acknowledging the biological reality. Jack ran a hand through his hair. And if Rose and Cal want more than that? If they want Cal to have a more active parental role, then we deal with that possibility if it arises. But Jack, ask yourself this, in the 6 years since the girls were born, has Cal ever tried to usurp your role as their father? Jack considered the question. Despite everything, he had to admit that Cal had always been respectful of Jack's position as the girl's father. He had never overstepped, never contradicted Jack's parenting decisions, never tried to create a separate bond with the triplets that excluded Jack. Until now, with this job offer that would bring him closer into their lives. I think that might be changing, Jack said finally. With this new job arrangement. Then that's something to address specifically, Diane advised. But before you make any irreversible decisions, I'd recommend family counseling. You, Rose, and possibly even Cal need to establish clear understandings about roles and boundaries moving forward. Jack nodded, feeling marginally calmer. What about legally? Should I be doing something to protect my relationship with the girls? Let's not jump to legal actions that might escalate tensions, Diane suggested. But it might be prudent to document your ongoing role in the girls' lives, involvement in school activities, medical appointments, daily care routines. Just in case. The just in case hung in the air between them. As Jack stood to leave, Diane added, Jack, one more thing. The fact that you're here, fighting for your relationship with these children, speaks volumes about what kind of father you are. Biology doesn't make a parent. Love, commitment, and showing up every day, that's what makes a parent. Jack thanked her and left, driving aimlessly for a while before ending up at his office. He went through the motions of work, reviewing blueprints and answering emails, but his mind was elsewhere. Around noon, his phone rang. It was Rose. Jack? Her voice was small and uncertain. The girls keep asking where you are. They want to know if you'll be home for dinner. Tell them I'll be there, Jack replied, surprised by his own immediate response. I just needed some time. I understand. Have you made any decisions? Jack looked at the family photo on his desk, the 5 of them at the lake last summer, all smiles and sunburns. Not yet. But we need to talk tonight, after the girls are in bed. Okay. There was a pause, then, Jack, I know you may not believe this right now, but I do love you. I've always loved you. Jack closed his eyes, fighting against the conflicting emotions her words evoked. I'll see you tonight, Rose. After hanging up, Jack stared at his computer screen without seeing it. His email notification pinged, and he clicked on it automatically. It was from Cal. Jack. I understand if you never want to speak to me again. What Rose and I did was wrong, regardless of our intentions. But before you make any decisions about your future, I want you to have all the facts. When Rose and I made the decision to use my sperm for the fertility treatment, it wasn't out of any romantic feeling between us. Rose was desperate to give you a child, knowing how much it meant to you. I offered because I thought I was helping my best friend. The new job offer is legitimate. I didn't seek it out as a way to be more involved with the girls, though I won't deny that the possibility of being closer to them was a factor in my decision to accept it. But I have never seen myself as their father. That role has always belonged to you. If you want me to turn down the position and maintain distance, I will. If you want me to move to Boston permanently, I will. Whatever you decide is best for your family, I will respect. The only thing I ask is that you don't punish Rose for a decision we made together. She has been tortured by this secret for years, but she kept it because she truly believed it was best for you and the girls. Whatever happens next, please remember that those 3 amazing children upstairs think of you as their daddy. That's the most important truth in all of this. Cal. Jack read the email 3 times before closing it without responding. Then he shut down his computer and drove to the one place he knew he could think clearly, the lakeside where he and Rose had been married. The November chill had driven away most visitors, leaving the shore relatively deserted. Jack walked along the water's edge, hands deep in his pockets, replaying the events of the past 24 hours in his mind. He thought about the fertility struggles, how devastated he had been each time a treatment failed. He remembered his resistance to the idea of using donor sperm, his irrational insistence that any child of theirs needed to carry his DNA. Had his stubbornness backed Rose into a corner? Had his rigidity about biological connection created the very situation that now threatened to tear them apart? The irony wasn't lost on him. He had wanted a biological child so desperately that he had inadvertently pushed Rose toward deception. And now, he was fighting for his right to be a father to children who weren't biologically his, arguing that biology didn't matter. By late afternoon, Jack had reached a decision. It wasn't perfect, and it wouldn't be easy, but it was the only path forward that put the girls first. He drove home as the sun was setting, pulling into the driveway just as Rose was turning on the porch lights. Through the front window, he could see the triplets setting the dinner table, carefully placing napkins beside each plate. His family. Imperfect, built on a foundation of lies, but still his family. Rose opened the door before he could reach for his keys. "You're just in time," she said, her voice tentative. "The girls made your favorite pasta." "Daddy!" 3 excited voices called as he stepped inside. The triplets rushed toward him, Emma reaching him first as always, followed by Sophie and finally Olivia, who wrapped her arms around his waist and held on tight. "We made dinner," Emma announced proudly. "Mom helped," Sophie clarified, always honest. "But we did most of it," Olivia added, looking up at him with those grey-green eyes that now so clearly marked her as Cal's biological child. Jack crouched down to their level, gathering all 3 into his arms. "It sounds perfect," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't wait to try it." Dinner was a strangely normal affair. The girls chatted about their day at school, about a bird's nest they had found in the backyard, about the science project Olivia was planning. They asked about Uncle Cal's new job and whether they would get to visit the hospital where he worked. Rose remained quiet, watching Jack with anxious eyes as he answered the girls' questions as naturally as he could. He was conscious of her scrutinizing every interaction, looking for clues about his decision. After dinner, after baths and bedtime stories, after 3 goodnight kisses and promises of pancakes for breakfast, Jack and Rose finally faced each other across the kitchen island. "I talked to a lawyer today," Jack began without preamble. Rosie's face paled. "I see." "Not because I'm planning to leave," Jack clarified. "But because I needed to understand my legal standing in relation to the girls." Relief washed over Rose's features. And it's complicated. But the bottom line is, I'm their father in every way that matters, and any court would likely recognize that. "You are their father, Jack." "You always have been." Jack nodded slowly. "I think I needed to hear that from an objective third party. To know that what I feel, this bond that I have with them, is real and recognized, even without the biological connection." "It's more than real," Rose insisted. "It's the most important relationship in their lives." Jack studied his wife's face, the face he had loved for 15 years, the mother of his children, the woman who had lied to him for over 6 years. "Why, Rose? Why didn't you just talk to me? Why the deception?" Rose sank onto a kitchen stool, her shoulders slumping. "Because I was afraid," she admitted. "We had been through so much with the fertility treatments. Each failure devastated you more than the last. When the doctor suggested donor sperm, you shut down the conversation immediately. I was processing, Jack argued. It was a lot to take in. It was more than that, Jack. You said, and I remember your exact words, if I can't have my own biological child, then maybe we weren't meant to be parents. Do you have any idea how that felt? To have my deepest desire, to be a mother, dismissed because of your need for a biological connection. Jack winced, remembering the conversation. I was hurting. We were both hurting. But Cal offered a solution. Someone you knew and trusted, someone who would be in our lives anyway. He thought, we both thought, that once you held your children in your arms, biology wouldn't matter anymore. You should have trusted me with the truth. Maybe we should have, Rose conceded. But we were trying to give you what you wanted most, a family. By taking away my choice. Yes. Rose met his gaze directly. And I have to live with that decision every day. But Jack, can you honestly tell me you would trade the last 6 years with the girls? Would you erase their existence if it meant you had been told the truth from the beginning? Jack thought about Emma's fearless spirit, Sophie's compassionate heart, Olivia's quiet wisdom. He thought about bedtime stories and first steps, about the treehouse and the family vacations, about the thousands of moments that had shaped him as a father and them as his daughters. No, he admitted finally. I wouldn't trade them for anything. Not even the truth. A tear slid down Rose's cheek. So where does that leave us? Jack took a deep breath. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Rose. What you and Cal did, it wasn't just a lie. It was a fundamental breach of trust that affects every aspect of our family. Rose nodded, accepting his words without protest. But, Jack continued, I'm not willing to tear apart our family over it. The girls deserve better than that. They deserve stability and love and parents who put their needs first. Hope flickered in Rose's eyes. What are you saying? I'm saying we need help. Professional help. You, me, and yes, even Cal. We need to figure out what our family looks like moving forward. What role Cal plays in the girls' lives. What boundaries we need to establish. How and when we tell the girls the truth, because eventually, they'll need to know. Family therapy, Rose said, nodding slowly. I think that's a good idea. And Cal's job offer, Jack continued. I don't have the right to veto it, but I need assurances that it's not an attempt to usurp my role in the girls' lives. It isn't, Jack. I swear. Cal has always respected that you are their father. Then he needs to be part of this conversation too. All three of us, figuring out what's best for Emma, Sophie, and Olivia. Rose wiped away her tears. Does this mean you're staying? That we still have a chance. Jack looked around the kitchen, at the refrigerator covered with the girls' artwork, at the growth chart marked on the doorframe, at the life they had built together. I'm not making any promises about our marriage yet, Rose. I need time to process everything, to rebuild trust, to see if that's even possible. But I'm not leaving the girls. Whatever else happens, I am and will always be their father. Rose nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. That's all I can ask for right now. A chance to show you that we can find a way forward, for the girls' sake if nothing else. Jack felt emotionally drained but also strangely calm. The path ahead would be difficult, filled with uncomfortable conversations and painful revelations. But for the first time since reading Helen Malone's note, he felt a glimmer of hope that they might find a way through this mess without destroying the family their daughters knew and loved. I'll sleep in the guest room again tonight, Jack said, standing up. I still need some space. I understand, Rose replied softly. Jack? Thank you for not walking away. He paused in the doorway. I'm not doing it for you, Rose. Or for Cal. I'm doing it for Emma, Sophie, and Olivia. Because they deserve better than to have their world shattered by adult mistakes. As Jack climbed the stairs to check on the girls one more time before retiring to the guest room, his phone buzzed with a text from Helen Malone. Mr. Dawson, I hope you don't mind my checking in. I've been concerned about you and the girls since yesterday. Whatever you decided, please know my only goal was to do right by the children. Jack paused outside the triplets' bedroom, watching their peaceful sleeping forms in the dim glow of the nightlight. After a moment, he typed back. I understand why you did what you did. The girls are okay. We're working through it as a family. Thank you for your concern. Family. Despite everything, that's what they were. A complicated, broken, imperfect family built on lies and love in equal measure. But still a family. And for tonight, that would have to be enough. I know you're feeling the weight of Jack's pain right now. It's that moment when you have to decide, do you walk away from years of love because of a betrayal, or do you find a way to rebuild something new from the ashes? If you're invested in Jack's journey, please hit that subscribe button. You'll want to see how this family finds their way forward. And leave a comment telling me what you would do in Jack's position. Would you be able to forgive Rose and Cal, or would this betrayal be unforgivable? The darkest hour is always just before dawn, and Jack's story is about to take an unexpected turn. 3 weeks had passed since that Tuesday morning when Jack's world collapsed. 3 weeks of sleeping in the guest room, of painful conversations with Rose that went nowhere, of Cal's desperate calls that he refused to answer. 3 weeks of maintaining a brave face for Emma, Sophie, and Olivia while his heart shattered every time they asked why Daddy seemed so sad. Jack stood at the edge of Mirror Lake, skipping stones across the still water, each ripple representing another fracture in his broken life. The paternity test results had confirmed Helen Malone's suspicions. All 3 girls were biologically Cal's. Rose's tearful confession had followed, a moment of weakness during their fertility struggles, just once, when Jack was away at a conference and Cal had come to comfort her. Neither of them had expected the in vitro fertilization to work with Cal's genetic material instead of Jack's. It was an accident, Rose had pleaded. The doctor said your sperm count was too low that month, and they suggested a donor. Cal offered anonymously. We never meant for you to find out. Her justification only made it worse. Not a moment of passion, but a calculated decision. His wife and best friend had conspired to create a family with Jack as an unwitting participant. The stone in Jack's hand sank without skipping. I thought I'd find you here. Jack turned to see Helen Malone, the girl's teacher, walking toward him. In the 3 weeks since she'd handed him that note, they'd spoken only once, a brief, uncomfortable conversation where Jack had thanked her for telling him the truth. Ms. Malone, he said, surprising himself with how genuinely glad he was to see her. Helen, please, she corrected, stopping beside him. I come here sometimes too. When I need to think. Jack nodded, looking back at the water. Did you follow me? Actually, no, she smiled slightly. Great minds seeking peace in the same place, I suppose. They stood in silence for a moment, watching a pair of ducks glide across the lake. I've been wondering how you're doing, Helen finally said. The girls miss your enthusiasm at drop-off. The mention of his daughters made Jack's throat tighten. I miss it too. Helen picked up a stone and skipped it perfectly, for bounces before it sank. I've been teaching a long time, Mr. Dawson. Jack, she amended. In my 22 years, I've seen all kinds of families. Traditional, blended, adoptive, single parent. You know what I've learned. Jack waited. Biology is the least important factor in being a parent. Helen turned to face him directly. Those girls have your values, your compassion, your sense of humor. When Sophie defended that new student who was being teased, that was you in her. When Emma figured out how to rebuild that broken bridge in science class, that was your problem solving. When Olivia wrote that poem that made everyone cry, that was your sensitivity. Jack felt tears forming. But they're not. Not what? Not yours? Helen's voice was gentle but firm. I watched you teach Olivia to tie her shoes for 20 minutes at the school carnival last year when everyone else was rushing to the next attraction. Cal wasn't there for that. I saw you sit through Emma's entire dance recital with a 102-degree fever because you promised her you wouldn't miss it. Cal wasn't there for that either. She picked up another stone. And I was there when Sophie fell on the playground and screamed for you, or not her mother, not Cal, but you. Because in her world, Daddy means safety. The stone skipped 5 times. A father isn't made in a moment of conception, Jack. A father is made in thousands of moments of choice. You've chosen them every single day for 6 years. Jack stared at the ripples spreading across the water, Helen's words penetrating the armor of hurt he'd built around himself. What about Rose? He asked quietly. The betrayal. Helen sighed. That's between you and your wife. I can't tell you what to do there. But I can tell you as someone who sees those girls 5 days a week, they are your daughters in every way that matters. And they need their father. Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from Rose. The girls made you something. They're waiting to give it to you when you come home. Please come home, Jack. Below it was a photo, a handmade card with 3 sets of handprints and the wobbly lettering "We love our daddy." Jack looked up to find Helen watching him with understanding in her eyes. Sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is choose love over hurt, she said. Even when it's the hardest choice in the world. As the sun began to set over Mirror Lake, casting golden light across the water, Jack realized something profound. DNA might have made the triplets, but he had made them who they were. And they had made him a father. Thank you, he said to Helen, really seeing her for the first time, the wisdom in her eyes, the kindness in her smile, the quiet strength in her posture. Just doing my job, she replied. Though I admit, this went a bit beyond the standard curriculum. Jack laughed, his first genuine laugh in 3 weeks, and it felt like breaking through ice. I should go, he said, feeling something shift inside him, not forgiveness, not yet, but a willingness to begin that journey. There are 3 little girls waiting for me. Helen nodded. Good luck, Jack. And remember, healing isn't linear. Be patient with yourself. As Jack turned to leave, Helen called after him, by the way, parent-teacher conferences are next week. The girls have been doing some amazing work you should see. It was such a normal, everyday comment, the kind that belonged to the life Jack had before the note. Somehow, it gave him hope that perhaps, eventually, a new normal could exist. I'll be there, he promised, and found that he meant it. If you're moved by Jack's journey right now, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Has someone in your life ever shown you what true parenting means? And if you're new here, subscribe to join our community where we share these powerful stories of human resilience and love. Now, let's continue with Jack's story. The Dawson Woodward home was unusually quiet when Jack arrived. Usually, the triplets would be running through the house, their voices echoing off the walls in a chaotic symphony that Jack had once found exhausting but now desperately missed. He found Rose sitting alone at the kitchen island, 3 colorful gift bags arranged neatly before her. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her normally perfect hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She looked up when he entered, hope and fear battling across her face. They finally fell asleep waiting for you, she said softly. They've been checking the window every 5 minutes since they got home from school. Jack nodded, keeping his distance. You said they made me something. Rose pushed the gift bags toward him. 1 from each of them. They've been working on these all week. Cautiously, Jack reached for the first bag, decorated with dinosaur stickers, Emma's favorite. Inside was a handmade book titled Adventures with My Dad. Each page contained a memory, Jack teaching Emma to ride a bike, building sandcastles at the beach, the time they got caught in the rain and jumped in puddles all the way home. The second bag, covered in soccer balls for Sophie, held a clay figurine, a tall man holding hands with a little girl. This is you keeping me safe, Sophie had written on the base in her careful handwriting. The third bag, Olivia's, contained a dream catcher made from a paper plate, yarn, and feathers. A note attached read, "To catch your sad dreams, Daddy." Jack sank into a chair, the children's gifts cradled in his hands. They miss you, Rose whispered. We all do. Jack looked up at his wife, really looked at her for the first time in weeks. Beyond his anger, he could see her remorse, her fear, her love, both for him and for their daughters. I spoke with Cal yesterday, Rose said, watching him carefully. He's moving to Seattle. The hospital there offered him a position months ago, and he's decided to take it. Jack absorbed this information with conflicted emotions. Part of him was relieved at the thought of not having to face Cal regularly, another part mourned the loss of a 30-year friendship that, despite everything, had shaped so much of his life. Did you love him? Jack asked, the question that had tormented him for weeks finally escaping. Rose shook her head immediately. Never. Not like that. It was one terrible mistake during the darkest time of our struggle to have a family. And then when the girls were born, when the doctor pointed out they had his eyes, we panicked. We convinced ourselves that telling you would only cause pain for everyone, especially the girls. You lied to me for 6 years, Rose. Yes. She didn't try to defend it. And I will regret that every day for the rest of my life. But Jack, I never lied about loving you. You're the only man I've ever truly loved. Jack closed his eyes, feeling the weight of Olivia's dreamcatcher in his hands. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I know, Rose whispered. But I'm hoping you'll give me the chance to earn your trust back. For us, and for our daughters. The word "our" hung in the air between them. They are ours, Jack, Rose said, reading his thoughts. Maybe not in the way we planned, but in every way that matters. Before Jack could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Daddy? You came back. They turned to see Olivia standing in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. In seconds, Emma and Sophie appeared behind her, as if connected by some invisible triplet alarm that one of them had awakened. Daddy, they cried in unison, rushing toward him. Jack knelt down as three small bodies collided with his, three pairs of arms wrapping around him tight enough to squeeze the air from his lungs. He breathed in the familiar scent of their strawberry shampoo, felt the warmth of their small hands on his face. We made you presents, Sophie said earnestly. Did you see them? I did, Jack managed, his voice thick. They're the best presents I've ever gotten. Are you still sad, Daddy? Emma asked, her grey-green eyes, Cal's eyes, searching his face with concern that was entirely her own. Jack looked at his daughters, these three extraordinary human beings he had helped raise, whose scraped knees he had bandaged, whose nightmares he had soothed, whose laughter had been the soundtrack of his happiest moments. In that instant, Jack made the most important decision of his life. Come here, he said, guiding the girls to the living room sofa where they could all sit together. Rose followed, keeping a respectful distance. I need to tell you something important, Jack began, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups have problems they need to work through, and sometimes that makes them sad or angry for a while. Like when we fight over the iPad? Sophie asked. Jack smiled. Something like that, but bigger. Your mom and I have some things to work through, and it might take some time. Are you getting a divorce like Lily's parents? Olivia asked, her lower lip trembling. The question pierced Jack's heart. He looked up at Rose, their eyes meeting over the heads of their daughters. We don't know yet what's going to happen, he answered honestly. But here's what I promise you, no matter what, I will always be your dad. Always. Even if you don't live here. Emma pressed, always the direct one. Even then, Jack confirmed. Being your dad isn't about where I live. It's about how much I love you, and that will never change. The girls seemed to consider this, exchanging glances in that silent communication only they understood. Can you tuck us in tonight? Sophie finally asked, her request so simple yet so profound. Jack felt something break and heal simultaneously within his chest. Yes. I'd like that very much. After bedtime stories, goodnight kisses, and promises that he would be there for breakfast, Jack closed the girls' bedroom door and found Rose waiting in the hallway. Thank you, she said quietly. For not making them pay for our mistakes. Jack nodded, exhausted but somehow lighter than he'd felt in weeks. I'm not staying tonight. I need more time. But I'll be back in the morning. I understand, Rose replied. And Jack? I know we have a mountain to climb, but I want you to know I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Therapy, time, transparency, anything. Jack looked at his wife of 12 years, the mother of his children, biology notwithstanding. The pain was still there, raw and real, but alongside it was something else, the possibility of redemption. One day at a time, he said finally. That's all I can promise right now. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But as Jack drove back to his temporary apartment that night, he realized it was the first step on a long journey toward healing, not just for himself, but for the family that, despite everything, was still his. I can feel how much this story is resonating with so many of you right now. The courage to choose love even in our darkest moments is something truly powerful. If Jack's journey is touching your heart, please hit that subscribe button and join our community. And I'd love to know in the comments, what would you do in Jack's position? Now, let's see how this emotional journey concludes. 1 year later. Jack stood in the backyard, carefully hanging colorful lanterns from the oak tree branches. Behind him, the sounds of celebration preparations filled the air, Rose arranging food platters in the kitchen, the triplets giggling as they decorated their handmade signs. Daddy, is this straight? Emma called, holding up a banner that read Happy First Birthday, New Family. Jack smiled at the slightly crooked lettering. Perfect, just like you. Today marked 1 year since what the family now called their new beginning, the day Jack had moved back home after 3 months of separation, countless therapy sessions, and difficult but necessary conversations. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, nights when the pain felt too fresh, when trust seemed impossible to rebuild. But there had also been breakthroughs. The day Rose handed Jack her phone and said, "No more secrets," the family therapy session where they finally found words for their feelings, the morning Jack realized he had gone a whole day without thinking about Cal. Cal, who now sent birthday cards to the girls from Seattle but otherwise respected the boundaries Jack had set. Some relationships couldn't be salvaged, Jack had learned. Others, with work and time, could transform into something new. "The Montgomery Parkers are here," Sophie announced, running inside from her lookout post by the front window. Jack finished with the lanterns and made his way to the front door, where Rose was already welcoming Helen Malone and her husband James. Over the past year, Helen had become more than just the girls' teacher. She'd become a friend to both Jack and Rose, a steady presence who had seen their family at its breaking point and now witnessed its healing. "Happy new family day," Helen said warmly, handing Jack a wrapped gift. "Though I maintain that the new part is unnecessary. You were always a family, you just had to remember it." Wise as ever, Jack laughed, accepting the gift. "The girls are in the backyard turning the gazebo into a celebration headquarters. They've been planning this for weeks." "I wouldn't miss it," Helen replied. "You've all come so far." Indeed they had. Jack watched as Rose led Helen and James toward the backyard, struck by how much had changed. The pain hadn't disappeared entirely. There were still moments when the betrayal stung, but it no longer defined them. The intensive couples therapy had helped Jack understand that forgiveness wasn't a single moment but a daily choice. It had helped Rose recognize the profound damage her deception had caused and take full responsibility for rebuilding trust. Most importantly, it had given them both the tools to communicate honestly about the hardest things. Jack followed the group outside, where more guests were arriving, colleagues, neighbors, friends who had supported them through the difficult year. Notably absent was any mention of Cal, though Jack had recently begun considering the possibility of allowing him limited contact with the girls someday. Not for Cal's sake, but for Emma, Sophie, and Olivia, who might someday want answers only he could provide. "Speech time," Olivia declared, climbing onto a chair with a homemade microphone fashioned from a paper towel roll covered in glitter. The guests gathered around as the 7-year-old cleared her throat importantly. "Welcome to our new family party," she announced. 1 year ago, our family got broken and then fixed again, like when Daddy glued my favorite mug. A ripple of gentle laughter moved through the crowd. "Sophie and Emma and me made a list of the best things about our new family," Olivia continued. "Number 1, Daddy smiles more. Number 2, Mommy doesn't look worried all the time. Number 3, we talk about our feelings even when it's hard." Jack felt Rose's hand slip into his, their fingers intertwining naturally. Number 4, Emma took over, stepping beside her sister. "We have special daddy days and special mommy days." And number 5, Sophie added, completing their trio, "We learned that families can break and still be fixed if everyone tries really hard and loves each other." The simplicity and wisdom of their words brought tears to Jack's eyes. He looked around at the gathering, at Helen Malone, whose courage had started this difficult journey, at Rose, who had fought every day to earn back his trust, at their friends who had stood by them without judgment. And most of all, at his daughters, his in every way that truly mattered. Later, as the celebration continued around them, Jack found a quiet moment with Rose on the porch swing. "Did you ever think we'd make it here?" she asked softly, resting her head on his shoulder. Jack considered the question. "There were days I didn't. But then I'd look at the girls and think about what Helen said that day by the lake, that being a father is made of thousands of choices. And I realized the same is true for being a husband." Rose nodded. "One choice at a time. The hard choice," Jack added, "is almost always the right one." They watched as their daughters organized the other children into some elaborate game involving the treehouse Jack had built years ago, the one with 3 different entrances designed to match each girl's personality. Some things hadn't changed at all. "I have something to tell you," Rose said, turning to face him. "I was going to wait until after the party, but—" Jack felt a momentary tightening in his chest, an echo of old fears. Rose noticed and quickly added, "It's good news, I promise." Remember last month when we talked about possibly expanding our family someday, when we were ready? Jack nodded, the conversation coming back to him. Well, Rose continued, a smile spreading across her face, I went to the adoption agency yesterday. They have a sibling group, 2 boys, ages 3 and 4. Their caseworker thinks we might be a good match. Jack's eyes widened. They had discussed adoption as a possibility for the future, a way to grow their family without the complications of their past. But he hadn't expected it to happen so soon. They need a home where siblings are already valued, Rose explained. Where differences are celebrated. The caseworker said our family history actually makes us ideal candidates. We've proven we can navigate difficult transitions and keep children's needs at the center. Jack was quiet for a moment, taking it in. Then he laughed softly. From the worst mistake of our lives came our greatest strength. Exactly, Rose squeezed his hand. We don't have to decide right away. We can meet them first, see if it feels right. Jack looked out at his daughters, now including Helen in whatever imaginary world they created. He thought about how much love their family had to give, how much stronger they were now than before. Let's meet them, he decided. And Jack Jr. is off the table as a name. Rose laughed, the sound merging with the joyful noise of the celebration. As evening fell and lanterns glowed in the gathering darkness, Jack gathered with his family for a photo. The triplets stood in front, Rose beside him, their guests surrounding them in a circle of support. 1, 2, 3. Family, the photographer called. In that frozen moment, Jack Dawson understood the most important lesson of his journey. Family wasn't defined by DNA or perfect choices. Family was built daily through love, forgiveness, and the courage to begin again, even when it seemed impossible. And sometimes, the broken places were where the light shined through the brightest. I hope Jack and Rose's journey has touched your heart today. Their story reminds us that healing is possible even after the deepest betrayals, and that the true meaning of family goes far beyond biology. If their story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button to join our community. And I'd love to know in the comments, what was the most powerful moment in this story for you? Thanks for spending this time with me today, and I'll see you in the next emotional true story.